Hi, I'm Greta Oliver. Welcome to the Educate You podcast, your roadmap to learning tips, techniques, and strategies to enable your student to successfully navigate the road to and through higher education. Today's guest on application essay tips on our segment of Educate You is Dr. Florence Riffe. We refer to her as Dee Dee. I just want to tell you a little bit about Dee Dee. Her LinkedIn profile tagline describes her as an independent writing and editing professional. She's that and so much more. Dr. Riffe is a student development professional, author of multiple books, former professor and assistant dean, and servant to many. She has a wealth of knowledge about student success and achievement, and we are pleased to have her as a guest today on our segment. She'll be discussing the do's and don'ts of the application essay. So get your notebooks and tablets ready for this very useful information. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Florence Dee Dee Riffe to Educate You. Thank you so much for coming and joining us today to give us some information that is much needed.
Thank you.
You're absolutely welcome. Because of so many things that have changed in higher education and in the admissions process and in the applications process, it's kind of good to kind of go over like some of the basics that students would need to know if they are submitting any kind of application essay or anything that's going to have public eyes on them and may be a determining factor in whether they are admitted to an institution or not. So I just want you to come in and just tell us all the good do's and don'ts, do's, bad don'ts of what students should do and should not do when submitting an application and why it's so important for them to do so.
Okay.
All right. So you can just jump in and start wherever you want.
Your outstanding book. I love this book. I've lived a lot of it. And I hope that everybody listening has a copy because there is a section in here on essays, but it's brief. It's some basic do's and don'ts that I'm going to elaborate on. So if you want to turn to page 12 in the book, 11 and 12, 10 and 11, you've got the basics. And I'm going to start not with any particular order by saying that the most important thing this essay can communicate, and I've got a lot of elaboration on this, is maturity. Elsewhere on your application essay, you will have test scores, you will have your grades, you will have your list of achievements and accomplishments, whether it's in a Vita form or resume form or just listed on the application. But that application in no way lets you communicate to people whether you're ready for college. So I don't want to scare you, but if you cannot write this essay and the book says this in so many words, you're not ready for college. You got to be able to do this. You got to be able to tell somebody why they should gamble on you and let you into their university. Let me do some real simple don'ts first. And I refer to the book, but these are worth repeating. You don't need to list your accomplishments in the essay. Forget it. That's elsewhere. You will annoy whoever's reading. They'll read the first paragraph and go on to the next essay. That's just how it works. So don't do that. What you're not trying to tell people that you have accomplished something. You're trying to tell people you have learned something. Primarily about yourself. You're talking about yourself. All right. One of the worst errors I've ever seen. I'm so glad you included this one, Greta. Don't say you have your heart set on that particular college or university. A lot of students do that and they just have this blanket kind of, I really do want to go to Ohio University. And if you say Ohio University in the essay, that's good. But a lot of students forget to change the name when they're at their fifth essay and have gotten essays that say at Ohio University, we're reading essays that say, oh, I can't wait to go to Miami University, the rival across the state.
Mm-hmm.
Big mistake. Whether you put the correct name or not, that doesn't snow anybody.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got your heart set on that university, and I've got an example of an essay here that does everything just right,
Okay.
and I'm going to refer to it in this talk. You're going to be able to communicate specifically why you want the Scripps College of Communication at Ohio University, for example, which is where I retired, and where Greta and I work together.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be in nuts and bolts, because you know that X number of people have won Pulitzer Prizes, such as that. Real specific, concrete facts. Instead of, oh, I love the campus. Oh, no, that's not going to get it.
Mm-hmm.
So the essay, these are the things that I'm going to use a cliche here that shoot you in the foot and will make the reader stop reading. On the do list on page 11 in Greta's book, the first item says, write about an event that changed you in some way. And this is the heart of the whole essay. Morally, educationally, socially. And explain that, how it contributed to your maturity. There's that word maturity again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This is not easy to do. And you don't want to do it in consultation with anybody else. And I'll talk about when you're all said and done, you can show your essay to somebody. But this is you and the piece of paper talking about something that changed your life, that made you more mature.
Mm-hmm.
This particular student here was writing an essay for law school. Now, I brought this one in because it is at another level, but it's an example of the level you should aim for, actually. This student is sitting in the library at the University of Chicago, and she said that it looks like a converted abbey with its vaulted ceilings and arched windows. The library was completed in 1912, before Enrico Fermi built the first nuclear reactor, before Milton Friedman devised the permanent income hypothesis, and well before Barack Obama taught constitutional law. Generations of scholars have poured over Adam Smith on the one hand and Karl Marx on the other in the main reading room, penned world-class treatises, and on she goes. And here's what that statement says: read not to believe or contradict, but to weigh and consider. Now, this is different from saying be objective and give both sides. It's read not to believe or contradict, but to weigh and consider. So you're going back to the very beginning before you even talk about sides. So this statement became the model for that student, and she talks about how that statement guided her through her jobs, through her decision to go to law school. That one statement helped her mature in her thinking. Now, that's what you need to look for. So you can have discussions with people who know you well. Your grandmother. I always talk to my grandmother about these things because, you know, you got another gap between the parents. Right. And there's never usually much conflict between you and your grandmother about what do you think? What do you see in me? You've raised a bunch of kids and watched grandkids grow up. So, I mean, this is really just nuts and bolts around the house advice, but it works. Okay. Now, I want to talk also about, and Greta knows this well, reasons for making this a stellar picture of you as a mature person for some other reasons. These essays are not just to get you into the college of your choice. These essays will get you scholarships, and they can get you on-campus jobs, because I have done it for students. I'll read an essay and say, wow, this is perfect candidate for the X, Y, and Z scholarship that calls for somebody with her credentials and her level of maturity. And some of these scholarships are not advertised. You can look at a list of scholarships, but you don't know how to apply for them. Well, that's because you can't apply for some of them. The school is going to make the decisions based after looking at you. But some of them are for incoming freshmen. And if your essay's good, you're going to get put in the stack that says for further consideration for scholarships.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of students do not know that. And I want you to know it, that real money is on the table waiting for you if you write a good essay.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is that the assistant dean works with, and this is at any university, with the undergraduate directors in each program. We had 5 schools in our college, and I know their needs. And I know, for example, that the audio director is dying to have a student who really loves audio and not just music and making audio productions. And if you have somebody like that, well, you get an essay that says, I live for hearing because I have some terrible visual problems and I always, was more developed orally. And you take that essay down the hall, down the stairs, to the person who needs a student to have a job, because there are jobs for undergraduates. Work study is one, but not the only job you can get. You can get a job. And this is not just money in the pocket. This is working with the person who's going to recommend you for a real job when you graduate.
Absolutely.
So that's 2 really important reasons to write a great essay, that you think you're just writing, let me in. Oh no, you can get money from a scholarship and you can get money from a job and the connections. And the last, which is real subtle, is I have read essays of applicants who were admitted and who did come, and I reached out to them and introduced them to the leaders of the various student organizations, because I saw the student as having leadership potential, and say, why don't you get this young person involved as a freshman in the Society of Professional Journalists, just to name one student organization. And that gives that student a leg up. And it's because of that essay. Okay. I've said a lot, Brett. If you want to plug in here or ask questions or.
Well, it's a lot really riding on the essay, and that's what I think is the most important concept that you've conveyed today. There's a lot of things that ride on a really good essay.
Yes.
So, it could lead to jobs, as you said. It could lead to different internships or work study opportunities, or being engaged with others that are like-minded on the campus, and being able to move yourself forward. But it's all based on being able to convey an event or situation where you have matured and showing that growth in writing. And I was noticing that when you read the essay for the law student, it was like reading a book, painting a picture for somebody
Yes.
when you read it. And I think that kind of essay definitely will grab somebody's attention. It will keep them reading rather than just a list of, oh, I did this, I did that. And so we definitely want to take those kind of tips and keep them in mind when we're writing our essays. And so what do you have to say about getting help when students are writing essays? Should students ever get help when they're writing essays?
Well, I'm going to try not to talk too much on this one because I taught writing for 35 years.
Okay.
Journalistic writing, but journalistic writing is like all good writing. And we inculcated some principles of good writing. And my first one to students, the first day of class, is talk on the page. You can always gussy it up to make it written on the page, always after the fact, because you're going to write and rewrite. All good writing, any author will tell you this, all good writing is rewriting. You're going to rewrite. So you don't try to make it perfect first time out. Talk on the page. Talk to yourself. I remember the day I had an encounter with the school bully on the playground, yada, yada, yada. And I actually read an essay like this one year. And this particular student had a conversation with the school bully and turned that person around. It was really she did a beautiful job with describing the situation, and it was somebody she had grown up with, and that helped. But I said, talk on the page. That's what she did. And even though she gussied it up, got the commas in the right places, got the quotation marks around the words that were spoken, that's all later. Get it down in spoken English the way it's coming out of your head.
Right.
starters, don't be intimidated by that blank plot page. A lot of students are, because they're thinking, oh, I don't know how to spell that word. I can't go any further. Forget it. Misspell it.
Mm-hmm.
You'll fix it later.
Mm-hmm.
As for letting people read it, I think your book, I'm going to quote your book. Do you mind?
I do not.
Write and rewrite your essay a dozen times, polish it some more. When you think it's finished, and only then, show it to someone who has known you all your life and ask, does this essay describe me accurately?
Mm-hmm.
That is such solid advice,
Mm-hmm.
Greta.
Absolutely.
And I don't mean, again, your grandmother would be a good person, but somebody from your church or synagogue or mosque, wherever you go,
Mm-hmm.
somebody who is not your parent or your brother or sister, because that they have so much attachment to you and are so invested in what you're writing, they may go overboard in making suggestions.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen that happen. I've seen it happen to me. My mother was a writer, and she would try to pick my writing apart. And up to a point by the time I was about 12, I did what she said. And then I finally said, no, Mama, this is me.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you for that suggestion, but that's not me. I wouldn't
Right.
say it that way.
Right.
And that was a turning point in my writing too.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, you can get some help that way, but that's after the 12th revision.
Okay. Okay.
And let me cite this other essay again too. When you're trying to talk about how something is affecting you, show how educated you are. Cite famous people you have read. Now, don't do it if you hadn't read them. But,
Mm-hmm.
everybody goes to a high school English class and reads Wordsworth. And this particular essay says, the more she thinks about weighing things, she said, with inner vision sharpened by years of consideration, I am able to see, quote, to see into the life of things as Wordsworth described in writing Tintern Abbey.
Mm-hmm.
Now, even if you didn't read Tintern Abbey, I can't believe there's a student who hadn't read, basic Wordsworth and those famous English poets. The world is too much with us late and soon. Getting and spinning, we lay waste our powers. So the students know those. And even if they don't recall them, it's fair game to use
Okay.
those
Mm-hmm.
quotes from the experts, the wise people,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, because it occurred to you in the first place. So then you go look it up to make sure you've got the wording right. That's no different from what grown-ups do all the time today.
Right.
You're doing your tax return. Well, I'm pretty sure I contributed X amount to church. Let me go double check the figure.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same process,
Right.
absolutely the same process. You know
Mhm.
it's there. So then you can go look that up. That's the help you get. But you don't call William Wordsworth,
Okay. Absolutely.
right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
You rely on the wisdom of the ages, so to
Mm-hmm.
speak,
Mm-hmm.
particularly in whatever field you're going into.
Right.
And she cites Bacon, Francis Bacon. Oh, well,
Mm-hmm.
Francis Bacon quote she's reading: read not to believe or contradict, but to weigh and consider. But that's the kind of references you need throughout too, to show
Mm-hmm.
that, one, you paid attention in class. Two, you know how to use this material. You've got
Right.
some educated. You've got
Mm-hmm.
a certain level of education. I hope that
Mm-hmm.
helps.
It did. It did. Thank you so much. And so we're coming to the end of our conversation. What other just tips are burning on the edge of your tongue to give to students right now? How important is this? And maybe just one comment about whether a student should write an essay if it has been listed, like on the website, that it's optional. Should a student ever not write an essay?
I always write the essay.
Okay.
It can
Okay.
only help. It can never hurt.
Okay.
It can only help you. it can never hurt you unless you do a bad job, but you're not going to
Right.
do a bad job,
Because you're
right?
not.
And you're going to show it to somebody who knows you.
Mm-hmm.
And does this reflect me? You're trying to tell people about the inner person. And again, if you have to do this at the top of every page, write the word maturity. That's your
Mm-hmm.
goal. You're
Mm-hmm.
saying, I'm mature enough to go to college. And I'm
Right.
telling you, you find yourself saying, well, I got this, I'm not going to do this essay.
Mm-hmm.
Then you're not mature enough to go to college, and you may not do
Absolutely.
well. Take the gap year. And then, in the gap year, boy, those are the best essays ever. The
Mm-hmm.
kids take a year and go work somewhere
Mm-hmm.
in a job or travel to a place that's not at all like the United States. They
Mm-hmm.
learn
Mm-hmm.
those are the best essays too.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
that I would say, no, it's not optional. If it is,
Mm-hmm.
just put the whole application away for a year. Come back
Okay.
in a year.
Okay, good point. So students should always remember to be their own true selves. Even if
Yes.
they are writing about something, referring to something, or using somebody else's example, still be true to themselves in what they're writing. So that is great, great information. Thank you so much for your help and your expertise. And we just look forward to hearing from you more on our podcast about
Great.
all things university. How about that?
Okay. That'd be fun. It'd be
Thank you
fun. I love
so
this.
much. I appreciate your time.
Okay. Okay.
All right.
Take care.
You too.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. Thank you for joining us today on Educate You. If you wish, you can send me your questions or comments about the college going process or the podcast contents by sending an email to Dr. Greta at gretaoliverconsulting.com. Also, beginning each week after the podcast airs, check for a companion blog on my website's blog page at gretaoliverconsulting.com. My book, College Roadmap, Essential Tips for First-Time College Students and Their Families, is available for sale on Amazon.com. Join us next week for another tip or strategy to make the road to higher education easier for your student.